So, Liz, I think we've established for you, right, no smoking, no drinking, gun violence. Is that an issue?
No, not. Okay. Nope, no guns.
Violent video games?
No video games at all.
Okay. Are you lonely?
No, I'm not lonely.
Okay, good. So the Surgeon General, from their perspective, you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I would say I'm in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I mean, these are all the recent Surgeon General warnings. Social media, how's that?
I mean, I'm not addicted. I have it. I use it.
Yeah, if you go back and listen to our last episode, I can't even remember.
2 episodes ago.
Thank God. Thank you for letting me know. You'll get a sense of Liz's social media use, but not addicted. Humble bragger for sure.
Humble bragger, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely called out on that.
So according to the Surgeon General, though, you do have something to worry about.
I have no idea what that might be.
Well, recently, the Surgeon General put out an advisory, which I think is less than a warning, and said that 2/5 of parents indicate that on most days they are so stressed they cannot function.
That's concerning.
It's from a new report called Parents Under Pressure. Roughly half of the parents say that their stress is completely overwhelming. And these dire findings are part of a 35-page report released in August, and it posits that parental stress is actually, Liz, an urgent public health issue.
Wow, that's pretty dire, but also sort of unavoidable if we want society to continue.
Excellent point. Yeah, you got to be like Elon, where you've got all the resources to have all the babies. Yeah, so 1/3 of parents with children under 18, which I believe is you but not me, rate their stress level is at 8 or even higher on a 10-point scale, according to the Psychological Association data. 2/5 of parents report being so stressed that they feel numb. Are you numb?
I'm not numb, but I'm pretty stressed.
I'm sorry to hear that. Do you talk to Pi about it?
Not much. I knit.
Yeah, there you go.
It's my coping.
How's your focus? Because it says that 3/5 say that the stress is so hard to deal with that they have a hard time focusing, and 2/3 are consumed by money woes. That doesn't go away, folks, by the way, after your children are older than 18. In each case, parents report markedly higher rates of stress than non-parents. So go all you non-children folks out there. One parent said, "Our stress levels are probably tenfold," said Sarah Barron, a mother of 3 who lives near Sacramento, California. Comparing herself and her childless friends, she says they can go out drinking, go out partying, and they don't have to find a babysitter.
Well, that's true. This is really interesting because I am in this stressful parenting, and I think we don't really have money woes, although I am starting to fear more and more as my older daughter gets closer to college.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the stress of parenting it's a lot. The driving, because their lives are more stressful. And
Sure.
I think that drives our own stress of they need to do all the things, and the way that they do all the things is by having parents to support them doing all the things.
Right. It's a collective build. Actually, I think we won't make this an episode about stress because that would be stressful. But certainly the role of technology in families' lives also compounded that, right? So busy, technology, all that good stuff. I was with a really neat group of superintendents by the ocean over the weekend.
Oh, very nice for you.
Yeah, I love saying that just so you're like, but then again, I was working over the weekend.
Yeah, so not very nice for you.
Yeah, but these folks were awesome. And Pi came up a lot. A few of them were big Pi users. And rather than using Pi, certainly some folks are using Pi to process some of their stress. But it's interesting, some of them are, as you were just saying, are the parents of kids in college or high school kids who are feeling super stressed. And they've been trying to get their kids to use Pi to deal with their own anxiety and stress. And they said to me, one of the moms said, well, Pi is saying the same exact thing I do, but Pi is saying it to them. So because it's not me, they're more able to listen, which I thought was fascinating.
I think we see that with Gary as well when he goes out to coach students and they have a project idea and the teacher has told them 10 times that this is not feasible. And Gary comes in and is like, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. And the kid immediately changes, even though the kid has heard the same thing from the teacher 20 times. So
it might be the authority, the fact that Gary is 6'7" or something. They're like, wow.
He must know stuff.
All right, let's switch to AI. Let's get a little book update. You said a couple weeks ago that the book is coming along. So how many pages, how many words? What's your sense?
I don't usually measure it that way. It has 4 chapters and each chapter is written at this point. And now I really am just adding in some of the kind of examples of projects, and I'm seriously getting pretty close.
I'm so impressed. It's really awesome. But you're not counting like the number of words or number of pages?
No, because it doesn't really matter to me.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Well, what would you think? I mean, since you're not paying attention to these key metrics that most authors would probably hang on every single day, but nonetheless, what would you think if I said, hey, Liz, can you write 50,000 words in 1 month?
That sounds like a lot of words in 1 month. That's How many words a day is that? I mean,
Fast math.
it's like a little less than 2,000 words a day. It's a lot.
Yeah. Well, there are days when you're writing articles on our work that it's 2,000 words a day. But yeah, there's this interesting challenge each November. We're coming up on it called the NaNoWriMo.
Oh, NaNoWriMo.
Oh, it's Remo?
That's how I've always pronounced it, or heard it.
Wouldn't the WRI stand for right?
Let's ask somebody that might know.
NaNoWriMo.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, look at that. Although I'm not sure I trust that. Nonetheless, this is a fascinating challenge that every November there is nonfiction, unlike the work that you're doing on PIP, which stands for Personal Interest Projects. This is 50,000 words, and it's about 1,600 words, 1,700 words a day. You're right. And so it does sound like it's a big challenge. And these folks have made a little bit of a kerfuffle, Liz, NaNoWriMo, put out a statement saying that they won't make a hard stance against AI. They argue that banning AI would ignore classist and ableist issues because some writers rely on AI for practical reasons, not just convenience. Let me quote from the organization. They said, the notion that all writers should be able to perform certain functions independently is a position that we disagree with wholeheartedly. And that didn't make folks happy. So writers like Maureen Johnson, she resigned from the board immediately, saying the statement was the opposite of community and creativity. And Daniel Jose Older, well, he didn't mince words. He called this absolute BS.
Wow, that's a hard stance.
Mm-hmm.
So while NaNoWriMo isn't taking a hard stance, he certainly is.
He is. What do you think?
I mean, the whole point of the challenge is to write, right? Like they do it, it's National Novel Writing Month, I think is what it sounds for, right?
Okay.
So, and it always takes place in November. I've heard of this before. I've had friends try to do it. And the whole point is to like spend the month really digging in and trying to write 50,000 words. And if you're going to do it with AI, like that seems like you're kind of skirting the challenge. Like what's the point of the challenge if you're going to use AI to do it?
Right. Maybe they just need a separate category, right? It's like with AI and not with AI.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I think that's a good idea. There are some people that don't write with AI at all, and there's also certain people that are using it in other ways that isn't writing their work for them, but maybe editing.
All right. Well, listen, since you're just about to finish your book on personal interest projects and capstone projects, you'll be done by November, right?
That's the hope.
All right. Well, get writing, Liz. Crank out 50.
Man, no more.
No, you're not into it?
No.
Let's have the community respond. Crank out 50,000 words by Dr. Elizabeth Rade. Can you imagine? It could be a fictional story about two dogs being uploaded to the Runway Gen 3 video maker where you upload a photo and it generates a video. And you could write a fictional story about how a third dog was generated. I'm Matt Mervis.
And I'm Liz Rade.
And this is ChatEDU, a podcast about AI in K-12 education. In today's episode, Missing in Action, Why OpenAI Will Not Release Their AI Content Detection Tool, we'll explore the funky intersection between a rock-solid content detection tool, and Liz, this thing is really good, and competitive business interests.
But first, in the news, Matt and I will get the latest from DeepMind and Google on all things non-Gen AI.
Then Liz will go back on a story that we teased in the last episode about a new study from Harvard regarding the power of AI tutors plus classroom learning.
You said that just plain Harvard.
I know.
All right. And then we'll go beneath the surface as we look at a tool OpenAI has had since 2022 that will flawlessly detect AI-generated writing, and yet they elect not to release it. And we'll examine a similar tool from YouTube that they are speeding to release on their end. Newsflash, it's all about the Benjamins.
I've been waiting for 28 episodes for you to say the Benjamins.
And we'll end with another short stack chat back.
All right, Liz, we're going to talk about two parallel stories. We have covered Google's DeepMind in a lot of different iterations. We've talked about AlphaFold. We've talked about the newest release in that, which is an open source system that's getting kind of more and more competent. We've talked about how AlphaGo was used to master gameplay. We've talked about AlphaProof for mathematics. We've talked about AlphaGeometry also for mathematics. I mean, lots of interesting stories about how these mostly non-generative AI technologies, this is really machine learning, some AI vision, deep learning, are doing all sorts of cool things. And so today we're going to talk about AlphaProteo, which is a new tool from Google's DeepMind, which is really about proteins and health and science. And then also we're going to pair that with a story from Google. This is like all Google all the time on this first story, with some new curriculum that they've released focused on mostly on non-generative AI. This is a theme for us, right? If you go back to AI for Good, the literacy component that we might be missing. I was just looking at our stats, Liz, by the way. That episode's doing really well. So if you haven't heard it, go back and have a listen, because we're making a contention that there is such an explicit focus right now around generative AI, all the music, the words, the pictures, the 3D models, the videos, all this cool stuff, that we're losing track a little bit of non-generative AI systems like machine learning and deep learning that are doing remarkable things in science, in climate, in healthcare, and the like.
And those are things that have been around for a long time, and we didn't really pay attention to at all until generative AI. And now we have to kind of like backfill our understanding of those things.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And not lose sight of it, because it's interesting, because it's not like it was all that stuff and then it was all ChatGPT. The non-generative systems are accelerating at a remarkable pace, and some of them have become generative. So sometimes if you're working on proteins, there's a generative twist there where it's creating new protein models in the same way it might create a 5-paragraph essay. It's just a protein model and not a 5-paragraph essay.
Yeah, that's far beyond anything that I am creating. But we are learning that AI's role does go far beyond tools like ChatGPT, and it is touching fields like bioengineering and AI literacy, and all of these are essential for understanding and applying AI in the real world. It's so much more than just generative AI.
Yep. All right, so AlphaProteo, let's go back on that, designed new protein binders by using AI to predict molecular interactions. I love when we do these stories because I just sound like I know what the heck I'm talking about, but I'm learning. It's been trained on 100 million protein structures. So those are the data sets that it kind of built off of from AlphaFold, right? They have this protein data bank, making it an essential tool for developing treatments for diseases like cancer and COVID-19. A quote from the AlphaProteo team: AlphaProteo's performance significantly reduces the time and cost involved in developing new drugs and diagnostic tools.
Well, that's always great to hear. There are these broader implications of AlphaProteo in bioengineering. And so bioinformatics is the use of AI and data science to analyze large biological data sets, which aids in discoveries in personalized medicine and disease diagnosis. And there's potential with AlphaProteo in areas like biosensor creation and pest-resistant crops. So bioinformatics and tools like AlphaProteo can pave the way for faster advancements in science and healthcare.
So what's the connection to Google and education? I had mentioned that Google at the same time, totally different divisions of Google, by the way. It's not like, ooh, let's go release this remarkable groundbreaking scientific tool and then a curriculum that will help kids get smarter about it. But we're putting these two stories together. So Google.org has had for a little while a tool called Experience AI. We actually linked to some of the lessons on our skills21.org site. So I think if you go to skills21.org/AI/resources. At the very bottom of that page, there's a whole list of AI literacy tools, many of them focused on non-generative AI. So Experience AI is a program that they've had with the Raspberry Pi Foundation for some time. There's a new challenge, though, which is pretty cool because our whole DNA, no pun intended, in our program has been about challenge-based learning. So they have this Experience AI Challenge, which is a free project-based resource that helps young people create AI and machine learning projects in 3 stages. First, it's discovering machine learning concepts and understand how AI impacts daily life. Then there's these like cool hands-on guided projects using tools like machine learning for kids, which is probably the version I need, or Scratch to classify data such as audio and text and images, because so much of this is about how do you label and identify data. And then they create a unique AI project empowering students to craft their own AI applications. From the google.org team, they say, the challenge is designed for AI beginners and it helps develop ethical considerations, computational thinking, and design skills.
This is so cool. I could totally see us having done an AI challenge if we were still doing Expo Fest. 100% would be amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a really important challenge because it does prepare students for diverse applications of AI, such as thinking about bioinformatics, climate science, rather than focusing solely on generative AI tools like ChatGPT. Again, I can't imagine what these students would come up with and ways to apply AI. And so these lessons in machine learning and deep learning and AI vision systems can inspire students to use AI to solve real-world problems like disease modeling and environmental challenges. There's so many ways that they could take this very open-ended challenge and apply AI.
I agree 100%, Liz. I think it would be so neat to see students doing this challenge-based work, but you can do it in your school. So check out the Experience AI curriculum from Google, including the AI challenge, and do all we can together to make space for AI literacy, starting really on our AI resources page. We've got lessons that go all the way down. It's not like we didn't develop them. We're just curating links and resources that we think are helpful, but they go down to K-5 learners. So kids can begin to understand, like, what is this AI thing? I love the idea of K-5 teachers building a foundation. Clearly, this is going to be enormously present in all of our work that we do in teaching and learning for the many years to come. So how can K-5 and middle school and high school not just focus on all the very interesting applications of ChatGPT and AI tutors, but how do we really build in some space for these non-generative AI systems, because they are going to be so important in our work.
Absolutely. And so I think educators, policymakers, they just need to help expand that AI literacy to ensure students are equipped to do this in the future. And I also love that Google does explicitly state that it's about ethical considerations, developing the ethical mindset. So let's keep moving on this, doing cool things.
As the teenagers say, Liz, let's go.
Is that what they say?
Do your kids not say that?
Oh, they say all kinds of things.
All right, awesome. We're going to come back to a story that we did last week. Last week, Liz introduced us to a concept of the first AI teacherless classroom, which I called BS on.
That's right. And you then poked holes in everything about my story.
Oh, we just had a listener reach out to us and say, loving the podcast. They talked about how we did an episode a few weeks back called From Solo to System, which is really about moving from individual skill development for teachers to how schools and districts can deploy AI in a more strategic way. Not more, but in addition, in a strategic way in areas like curriculum renewal and developing new initiatives and all this kind of stuff. But one of the things that said listener said was, great podcast. I don't know how Liz puts up with you, Matt.
Yeah, it's true. I'm hanging in there, Ed. Don't worry.
It is a burden, isn't it?
No, it's great. We did talk about that report of this, teacherless classroom, although there were 3 learning aids, and so it wasn't really teacherless. But this study is an actual study, and it comes out of Harvard, and they were testing whether an AI tutor could match or surpass traditional instruction in terms of learning outcomes and engagement. And this was done in a physics course called Physical Sciences 2, or PS2. And the results were that students using the AI tutor showed nearly double the learning gains compared to traditional methods, with post-test scores averaging a 4.4 versus a 3.6 for the instructor-led group. And this quote from the article from the professor, Gregory Keston, said, "We didn't expect the AI tutor to outperform human-led teaching, but the results surprised us."
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the tech behind the tutor. So Gregory Keston used the GPT API. So that's the Application Programming Interface. And we throw that acronym out a lot, but it is essentially the platform behind many of the custom educational tools that are using student-facing AI. So we use that in our Sidekick. I know Magic School uses that and other models inside their platforms, and lots of folks, and we've covered many different iterations of this on the podcast, use the ChatGPT API inside their own platform or ecosystem. One of the key reasons is that it allows them to do more fine-tuning. I know you've been doing lots of cool fine-tuning where you can give the AI sort of specific instructions. It also, and probably most critically, means that what students type into the chatbot when they hit that user interface doesn't go into the larger training data for OpenAI. And that's a key regulation in terms of student data privacy. All right, with that caught up. So they took a highly customized tutor specifically for this Physics 2 course, incorporating prompt engineering, and they scaffolded lessons to mimic the behavior of a seasoned physics instructor. So it embodied Professor Keston. The AI provided personalized step-by-step feedback for students at any time, offering them a chance to revisit the material or clarify complex concepts. One of the co-authors said, the AI tutor provided continuous support, allowing students to learn at their own pace while still ensuring they grasped key concepts.
Yeah, the tutor's training ensured it adapted to individual student needs, providing more detailed feedback than what's possible in a large lecture setting.
Let's talk about how the study was structured, Liz. Nearly 200 students were split into two groups, alternating between traditional active learning in the classroom and AI-based learning. Both groups completed pre-test and post-test to measure learning outcomes. I love the phrase active learning, by the way, because you're basically with the AI tutor or you're the active learning setting. Do you know what active learning probably looks like, Liz?
Probably looks like students sitting in a lecture while somebody stands at the front of the room and talks.
That is exactly right. So Professor Keston says the AI tutor offered an immersive learning experience, significantly improving engagement compared to the lecture format. Imagine that.
Not surprising. So the AI tutor was able to address students at different learning paces, and it allowed students to review material as needed, making the experience a lot more flexible and personalized.
So part of what's so cool here, Liz, is that it's like, how did they use the time, right? You have this precious class time, and all of a sudden you have an AI tutor that can meet kids where they're at. It can adapt to their learning needs. It's been trained on everything that the professor would have said, but it's not in a lecture-based format. So you're taking some of the pressure off of that environment. And now, what do you do with that class time? So in this case, the AI tutors allowed the instructors to spend in-class time on more higher-order thinking skills. I think we're intuiting a little bit here to say that they were doing project-based learning, but Keston talks about how they could do more critical thinking. So instead of using valuable class time to teach basic physics concepts, they could focus on collaborative, real-world problem-solving. The co-author here again, Miller, says, with the foundational knowledge covered by the AI tutor, we could use class time to dive deeper into complex topics.
This sounds like the flipped classroom. And this shift allows for more interactive and hands-on learning in the classroom. The role the AI tutor played was preparing students for the discussion so that in class they could be much more interactive and hands-on.
Yeah, you nailed it. This is the flipped classroom, although I'm dying for us to find a better phrase, right? Because flipped classroom, it had its moment in the sun, and people essentially felt it was it was the active learning component, in this case really meaning teachers talking, right?
Yeah.
And it was a video of them talking. So when we say, oh, it's like the flipped classroom, I think it really downgrades, especially because this AI tutor is going to go from being, I may have said this once or twice before, but my contention is that it's going to go from being this cool little chatbot that you're interacting with. I mean, what happens when that's a holographic display that pops off your desk that knows everything about you and can do this really cool AI tutoring with you? Are we going to say that's the flipped classroom? That's going to feel like a whole hell of a lot more impactful than watching a professor's video.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. This is flipped classroom extreme. Elon Musk would come up with Colossus flipped classroom or something. So we just need better marketing.
Well, how about the community weighs in here? I've been calling it the human augmented classroom, which I don't love either. But if you've got a better idea, email us at chatedu@edadvance.org. That's chatedu@edadvance.org. I sort of envision someone driving their car and they just literally are mouthing EDADVA. If that's you, bravo. Well done. What's cool is that this is moving beyond just the PS2 classroom, right? There are other departments. There's a professor in mathematics that's taking this on. There's a thing called the Derek Bach Center for Teaching and Learning. They're piloting these chatbots in other introductory courses. So clearly they've discovered, it's interesting because they had a theory, right? They were like, we think this may be impactful. And then they find that it's got a 2x improvement. And so clearly folks at Harvard are jumping on this. And they're certainly not the only ones. There are a lot of people who are working on smart tutoring systems. I mean, Khan Academy. Right, Khanmigo is essentially an embodiment of this. And by the way, Sal Khan also, I've heard him talk a few times about, you can see it in the earliest instance when his son is doing that little demo with GPT-4, but we are going to see this become the voice, the vision, the interactivity become a whole lot more compelling.
That's great, Matt. This is going to be really easily customized for various subjects and can offer personalized support and foster deeper engagement across disciplines. You can really see almost no place where this couldn't be helpful. And so the math professor, Eva Politu, stated, the AI tutor in Math 21A promotes inquiry-based learning, encouraging students to take an active role in their own understanding and problem solving.
I love it. So that's even going beyond the active learning component, right? They're not just trying to have it, make lecture better through personalized engagement, but actually dig into things like inquiry, which I know you and we through project-based learning and Capstone have also been like, how do we layer AI not just into the what do students need to know and be able to do, but how do we layer it into problem solving, critical thinking, analysis? And we find those to be some of the most compelling, just like in the real world, we find some of these to be the most compelling use cases for AI. So go Eva. I can't wait to see what Harvard does with these expanded pilots.
Absolutely.
So Liz, now let's just up the game a little bit.
All right.
Dun, dun, dun. So if the GPT-4 tutor was wicked smart, as we say where I live up in Massachusetts, we have a new model out. It's so exciting.
Does it have a name?
Yeah, well, for a long time it was called Strawberry. For a while it was called Q-Star. I don't think we've covered this yet, but a thing came out from OpenAI a number of months ago that essentially rolled out what they believe were the 5 stages towards artificial general intelligence, when the machines can do all the cognitive functions of any human being, and then we hang out at home and make sourdough bread and play guitar and host open mic and stuff like that.
And knit.
Demis Hassabis, the CEO of Google DeepMind, I was just listening. I've heard this a couple times, but people have asked him a few times now, like, what will you do when you create AGI? And he says, extreme sports. And he's, by the way, one of the world-class game players. So Go and all sorts of, my son is deeply into board games, my older son, and he's like told me every game that Demis Hassabis has ever played and mastered. I'm not trying to say he's a little geeky, but he's not what you think of when you think of extreme sports. So when we have artificial general intelligence, that's what he's going to do. Could you do extreme knitting?
I don't know what extreme knitting would look like, but I am always up for anything knitting related.
All right, let me get off my AGI fantasy land and come back to Earth. So on those 5 levels, we're at level 1 right now. GPT-4o is like interacting in compelling ways with artificial general intelligence in the form of a chatbot. Level 2 was deeper reasoning. Everyone thought we were going to the next phase was going to be agentic, which is essentially when the AI can like execute lots of stuff. Don't just plan the, oh my goodness. Liz just made her, it was like a Chinese gong. Everybody's talking about agentic AI, where the AI doesn't just plan the trip for you, it actually books all the things, right? So it books your knitting class and your basket making class as well as schedules your agenda. I know you want to book your own stuff. So in between agentic AI is this reasoning phase. They call this level 2. And that's where AI is essentially able to do the stuff it can't do right now. Really complex math problems, chemistry problems. We've talked before about the International Mathematics Olympics, and ChatGPT-4, for instance, gets like a 15, 16%. I know Google's DeepMind did better, but ChatGPT-4 doesn't do great on the math challenges. But they've just released a new model called O1 Preview. And O1 Preview is getting like 86% on the math challenge. People are throwing all these really complex coding tasks at it, and it is crushing them. Ethan Mollick does this really amusing thing where he outlines a very, very hard crossword puzzle that he gave it. And O1 Preview, it's slow, by the way. Like it takes sometimes 72 seconds to solve something.
That's not slow.
In the world of AI, it is, right?
Okay.
So it uses what folks have done manually, which is chain of thought reasoning. It's essentially giving the AI instructions to go back and forth and check its work and iterate and evolve its thinking. But now it's embedded those qualities. It's doing it on its own. So you give it this super complicated crossword puzzle, and it has all these interdependencies, and it starts trying to problem solve them. It's like, oh, that A goes with that B, and this word goes with that word. Oh, no, that doesn't work. And you can see it.
Wow.
Quote unquote thinking, exactly. So if the GPT tutor is crushing it in its current state, as it gets much better, by the way, there's all sorts of stuff it doesn't do well. Like it doesn't do common sense problem solving well. It just does this really complex reasoning problem solving well, right? So, I mean, you're a big Norway fan. Have you ever taken the Mensa IQ test?
Not the Norway version, no. I don't think I've taken the American version either.
Do you know what your IQ is?
I don't. I've never been tested, although not to humble brag, but I believe my GRE scores qualified me for Mensa.
If you want to guess whose IQ is higher between Dr. Rade and Mr. Mervis, go ahead and email that at ChatEDU. I'm going to tell you right now, it's Liz. All right, so anyhow, this level 4.0 preview, these names are so compelling. They will do everything that a PhD chemist and biology student can do, but they'll just name it strawberry and then call it 401 preview. Brilliant. So nonetheless, it is getting a 120 on the Norway Mensa IQ test, potentially making the first time that an AI model has surpassed the average human IQ.
Wow. The average human IQ is 100.
Yeah, well, there you go. So I was about to say we're all in trouble, but a related topic here that is a not massively covered story yet. OpenAI has these things called cards, and every time they release a new model, they share different things about the cards. Like when the voice model came out, they released a card that said, oh, people may fall in love with this thing and become emotionally attached to it, which we certainly have our own personal card when it comes to pi. So the security risk for biological and chemical weapons development so far for ChatGPT-4 has been low. Right? But 401 Preview has released a new card that brings the risk level to medium.
So people can ask GPT-4o whatever premium how to make biological weapons?
It's 401 Preview.
Oh, whatever. 401 Preview.
Yeah, my understanding is that I think there's also 401 Mini, just to make the naming even better. Yeah, my understanding is that if you were a novice or had no background knowledge in developing chemical or biological weapons, you're out of luck. But if you have some expertise, this thing will take you over the top.
Why are we letting that happen?
That's an excellent question, Liz.
That stresses me out.
Really? Liz, there's a new Surgeon General's warning saying that parents with
This has
young kids...
nothing to do with parenting. Oh, my goodness.
All right, let's move on to more happy news.
Okay. All right, Matt, let's go beneath the surface and talk about why OpenAI will not release something that works really well in detecting AI-generated content.
I get the sense you want to move on from this medium security risk card thing.
Yeah, let's move on to something else that could be detected and isn't. So I don't know. Is this going to be any better?
We've established in the beginning of the episode that drinking isn't a problem, but you might revisit. All right. So yes, this story has been floating around for a little while. I mention it occasionally when I'm doing some professional learning. But OpenAI in 2022 developed a watermarking system where they would embed hidden patterns in AI-generated text that are detectable by algorithms, making it easier to distinguish between AI and human writing.
Okay, so that means that it would help with this challenge of AI plagiarism in schools and universities. So many teachers are struggling to detect AI-generated essays with traditional plagiarism detection tools that are totally ineffective. And you're saying that there is a way to watermark the text so that teachers could detect with fidelity the AI-generated content?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's interesting the way it works. So there's seeming randomness, right? Every word that comes out, the next word in any particular sentence, as we've talked about a few different times, is this kind of statistical pattern matching or statistical generation. So I'm writing about the French Revolution and I get one word and the next word, and there's some randomness in the next word that comes out. And that's why each time, if you make a similar prompt in ChatGPT, you won't get the same string of words. And then if you go from ChatGPT to Claude or to Gemini, you get different results there as well. But for OpenAI, because they wrote the algorithm of what words come next, they have like a secret key that they can use to say, nope, that was an OpenAI algorithmic prediction in ChatGPT. So they know exactly when the word disintermediation comes out versus intermediation. That's a bad example, but you know where I'm going. They know that that source came, in fact, from OpenAI. Now, if the kid does a little bit of prompt hacking and they try to manipulate or say change the spelling or revise, it helps a little bit, but because it's really using the same algorithm to know the randomness of what word comes next, they can, with a high level of fidelity, say, yep, that was written by ChatGPT. They can't say it was written by Gemini, but they can say it was written by ChatGPT. So why, Liz, do you think they would develop this thing all the way back in 2022 and not release it?
Well, and now I'm starting to understand why you're saying it's all about the Benjamins, or why I say it's all about the Benjamins, because that just means kids will stop using ChatGPT and they'll hop on over to Claude or Gemini to create their stuff. And you're saying that because ChatGPT wrote the ChatGPT algorithm, there isn't a detection tool built into these other models, so they would be undetectable.
Precisely. I don't know if you're a 120, Liz, but you nailed it here.
All right.
So yeah, that's exactly right. It is a competitive pressure thing. There's a couple benefits for OpenAI letting kids do all this essay writing, right? For one reason, all the data when they're at home using it on their own is going into the training data for OpenAI. So the more words it has, whether it's scraped off of the internet or ripped out of a YouTube video or generated by a kid writing about the Civil War, it's all fodder, right? It's all fuel that they can use. So the more stuff they get inside the system, the better. And exactly, if all of a sudden teachers can detect their writing, they're going to go, well, I'm done. I'm going over to Claude, and think of all the kids and all the volume of all the users, and all those users are the metrics that they base their performance and their evaluations on right now. They're toast. I mean, not toast. It's not like the high school essay is going to kill OpenAI, but I bet it would actually make a pretty significant dent.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. This plagiarism thing is mostly an issue for schools and education. It's not, beyond school, like where are people looking for plagiarism?
Well, apparently in the writing competition, but...
Well, yeah, there too. But people don't care about plagiarism in bioengineering and AlphaFold and all these other things. So it is, a particular use case, but it's a huge use case because every kid goes to school. So I can totally see why there would be questions about whether or not we want to send kids off of our platform onto another one. So it's not just them using it for school, but if they then become more comfortable with Claude or Gemini as their kind of go-to tool, they're not going to go back to ChatGPT for something else either.
Right, 100%.
All right, so with all of this being discussed, there is a proposed California Digital Content Provenance Standards Bill, which would require all generative AI companies to implement detection systems for AI-generated content. This would level the playing field and ensure that companies like OpenAI don't suffer a competitive disadvantage.
Exactly. So if everybody's got to do it, everybody's got to do content watermarking, so you're good to go. The thing is, right, there are non-commercial systems like open source systems. I mean, you can run an open source model on your laptop. So I don't know that that's actually going to work. I mean, great intent. You could see why it would be helpful, but I don't think the stars are aligned here.
And would it mean a teacher needs to check the content in first go to ChatGPT and check it in that system, and then go to Gemini, and then go to Claude, and then go to all the different systems?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, if each of the companies had to divulge something about their algorithms, I imagine they could feed them all collectively to like a Brisk Teaching or a ChatGPT Zero or a Turnitin that has the AI module. So they probably could federate those together. But yeah, I mean, it's complicated and it seems highly unlikely. So we've talked about this topic a lot, right? We've talked about content detectors not working all the time. We've talked about, which I'm really heartened by the fact that teachers do acknowledge. I mean, as I talk to lots of teachers, they'll tell stories of saying, yeah, it worked and then it didn't work. Or I put my own writing in there and it said that it was, 40 or 50% likely to have been written by AI. So we know that content detectors don't work brilliantly. We also know that teachers, we referenced that Reading University study, that teachers and professors probably have, I say this with kindness and love, but probably have an overinflated sense of their own ability to catch the content that the students do. So we're back to all the good stuff we've talked about: durable assessments, AI ethics, student-facing guidelines, actual student use of AI in the classroom in a monitored setting. There's a half dozen moves that we just have to collectively make inside all of our schools to make progress on this front. Higher ed, trickier subject. You got high volumes of writing. We talked last week about, a class with 1,000 kids using an AI writing feedback tool. But for K-12 and mostly for middle and high schools, there's just a range of strategies that we have to collectively deploy together, and they're doable.
Yeah, it's definitely doable, and I think there is a path ahead. We just all need to kind of work together on it.
Let's go.
Let's go.
They probably don't say that anymore. All right, now on the flip side of the coin, right? This is again all about the Benjamins, Liz. They're happy to detect and deploy AI watermarking or detection systems when they need to, when the threat of legal action or the interest of content creators is significant. So YouTube announced this last week that they're going to roll out a whole range of AI detection tools for creators, including synthetic singing detection and face replication tools, so that when people are using things like Udio or other deepfakes, they're able to spot them, right? These tools are being built into their existing content ID system to protect artists from unauthorized AI-generated content and to protect YouTube from getting sued left and right.
So yes, once again, money is driving this, and YouTube has a financial incentive to create these AI detection tools, but education doesn't yet, so it's lagging behind.
Wah, 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 wah.
Don't you have a little machine over there that can make that noise?
I'm leaving the text, the 11 Labs text to sound effects generator. Oh my God, imagine if this thing was free, it'd be driving teachers crazy in the classroom. Liz, I feel like this has been a slightly depressing episode, right? We've talked about your stress. We've talked about, the Harvard study was optimistic and offers a lot of promise. But then all of a sudden we started talking about, it's really my fault. We talked about the medium risk level and the new O1 preview. We're talking about the economic alignment and interests and how it doesn't always align to our schools. Is there something hopeful we can say as we close here? Something positive? It's Monday. We're going to release on Friday. What are you happy about this week, Liz?
All right. Well, I am happy that it is September 16th and it is 80 degrees and sunny outside here in Connecticut.
So I shouldn't say anything about global warming?
No.
I'm such a Debbie Downer.
Oh, how does Liz put up with Matt every week? All right. It's time for our short stack chat back. All right, Matt, this episode has me really stressed out, so I think we need something positive. Can we ask someone like, I don't know, Mr. Rogers to help us out here?
We can, yeah. So typically the way we get our short stack chat back for a little behind the scenes is we will say to Claude, here's what we're trying to do, and would you have an individual, whether it's Dr. Seuss or Nietzsche or who else have we done lately? G.K. Chesterton.
John D. Rockefeller.
We'll say in the voice of this person, whether it's their style or their actual voice, talk about this topic in a particular way. So I said, for our podcast, can you help us make a tough topic a little better? We'd like to have Mr. Rogers say 3 sentences about OpenAI's new O1 preview model and its ability to advance chemical and biological weapons development, which has caused OpenAI to issue a medium security risk card. By the way, I want to de-stress you a little bit. I read an interesting piece this morning that said OpenAI was kind of using this whole medium risk thing as a marketing tool. I'm not sure I buy that, but their argument is that OpenAI is saying, hey, this thing is so powerful and so compelling that we had to up the security risk a little bit. So Claude responded to me, said, I apologize. I don't feel comfortable creating content that portrays Mr. Rogers discussing potentially dangerous weapons development, even in a fictional context. Perhaps we could explore discussing emerging AI technologies and their societal implications in a more general, constructive manner that aligns better with Mr. Rogers' values of kindness and education. I'd be happy to suggest some alternative approaches to your podcast if you like.
Oh, I appreciate Claude not putting words into Mr. Rogers' mouth that he wouldn't have said.
Right, exactly. They have this thing, Claude uses this thing called constitutional AI, which is like the UNESCO General Agreement on Human Rights. I'm not totally sure I'm getting this exactly right, but it knows how to be nice, right? And so it's like, no, I won't do that. So I said, yes, that's great. Have at it. And thanks as always for your great work.
Oh, always being kind to the AI generative bots.
Liz, as I'm writing custom instructions for things these days, I do so much of this. Like, you're doing great work. I really appreciate everything you're doing. Liz and I have faith in you.
I just read something that if you tell it that your job depends on it, it'll also do a better job of generating things because it feels, quote unquote, like it has to do a better job because your job depends on it.
Right.
Like my job depends on you giving me the right answer.
Right, exactly. The stakes are raised. Now, interestingly, on the O1 preview, sorry, short stack chat back is not so short right now.
Derailed.
In the O1 preview, one of the things that folks have talked about, that all these like schemes that we've developed over the last year and a half for working with prompts may go away. So it's interesting, like in O1 preview, this whole like, you're a world-class lesson developer and please help me develop a lesson with these characteristics. It doesn't appear to perform very well with those. It seems to like just sort of short, straight, forward kinds of prompts. So for a long time, folks have said, like, I don't know if this whole prompting thing is really going to be like an ongoing skill. And we'll see. Maybe not. But this was Claude's response to me saying, thanks for your great work. It says, I appreciate your understanding. Let's explore a more constructive approach that aligns better with Mr. Rogers' values and the educational spirit of your podcast. Here's an alternate suggestion. So, Claude and 11 Labs and Mr. Rogers, RIP, let's let it roll.
Hello, neighbors. In our world today, scientists are making incredible discoveries that can help people in many ways. But just like when we learn a new skill, it's important to think carefully about how we use these new ideas. We all have a part to play in making sure that new inventions are used to make our neighborhood and the whole wide world a kinder, safer place for everyone.
Oh, Mr. Rogers, that made me feel so much better. And I love that Claude, Mr. Rogers, throws in the word neighborhood a few times because I just love Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. So this was another interesting episode, Matt.
Interesting. We'll shoot for something a little bit more upbeat next week.
All right, let's hope so. But this was great as always, and I look forward to podcasting with you every week.
Every week. In fact, we should say real quick, Liz, that next week we're going to be recording our very first live ChatEDU session. We're doing it with a group of the Connecticut Computer Science Teachers Association here in our office in Litchfield. So we're going to cover a story and then do a live Q&A. And this is the first, I think, of 3 of these that we have coming up. And who knows, maybe if the Southwest panel picker, do we know if we...
I don't know about South by Southwest yet.
Okay. All right. So who knows? Maybe we'll have more of them to come, but we'll look forward to doing our very first live podcast that will come out next Friday.
Excellent.
Let's roll the credits.
All right. As always, we'd love to hear what you think, so please let us know at chatedu@edadvance.org. That's EDADVANCE.org. And also rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you are using. ChatEDU is brought to you by EdAdvance, the nonprofit regional education service center in Litchfield, Connecticut. ChatEDU is recorded, edited, and produced by Ahmed Malik, whose dedication and expertise bring our discussions to life. ChatEDU's executive producer is Cameron Audia. Additionally, we are grateful for the support of our colleague Gary Robinson. Gary is the ChatEDU Design and Outreach Ginsu Knife, and we appreciate his time and talents. And of course, a big ChatEDU shout out to our fearless leader and executive director, Jonathan Costa, for inspiring the pod. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey exploring the thoughtful and innovative integration of AI in education.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Costa, and I am the executive director at EdAdvance, and I want you to know how much we appreciate our listeners. With the new school year, we are back on our regular schedule with new episodes dropping every Friday throughout the school year, with occasional breaks for holidays or special events. If you enjoy the podcast, feel free to explore EdAdvance's other AI services, which include customized professional learning of all kinds, conferences, our new micro-credential, co-sponsored by the Southern Connecticut State University, Office of Workforce and Lifelong Learning. Just log in to skills21.org/AI to learn more. That's all for now, and thank you again for listening to ChatEDU.